A new phase of COVID infections in the U.S. Which states are seeing the biggest spikes? What to watch as voters in 6 states go to the polls today? And New York to LA in 26 hours by car. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Tuesday, June 23rd. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hey, Carlo. Good morning.
Morning, Jill. Good to see you back at home. How was the office yesterday?
It was great to be back in terms of just being at the anchor desk and just the ease of technology and the big monitors and the cameras. Like, doing the job was a little bit easier. But it felt really, really strange and weird to be back to an empty office pretty much. I mean, I was on, for everyone who's listening, we have 2 floors. Our office is on 2 floors. And I was on one of them pretty much by myself. That's where our cheese desk, as we call it, is. And I saw Kyle, who's our tech guy, there for maybe 2 minutes just to adjust the camera and help me a little bit getting my mic connected. But then it's like a solo thing. I swung upstairs quick to check out where my new desk would be, and I saw a couple of the other anchors. But it's surreal, and the whole office has been scrubbed down. So unlike when I went back to my apartment, which was like a time capsule, this was a little different because everything had been cleared and wiped down. But it's so bizarre.
Brave new world, Joel.
Yeah. And I think, and I mentioned this, and I'm glad we just spent time, because I think a lot of people are going to be doing this type of thing. New York City's in phase 2. Other places are open, and it's, I'm curious what other people's experiences have been with that. And I don't know if everyone took quite the big pause that we did here in New York, but it is just it's incredibly bizarre. Okay, on to some news. The pandemic appears to be entering a new phase, with hotspots and outbreaks coming from places that avoided the initial worst outbreak. So at first, this was nursing homes, meatpacking plants. Now it is strip clubs, bars, casinos, churches, where the virus is being seeded. 3 of the states that are seeing the worst outbreaks right now are Arizona, Texas, and Florida. So they have been tinkering with their mask policies in response. In Arizona, the governor is letting local governments mandate masks or not. In Texas, the governor said the spread is happening at a, quote, unacceptable rate, and he urged Texans to wear masks. In Florida, the Surgeon General signed an order recommending mask usage.
This, to me, is the Florida Surgeon General signed an advisory on Saturday, urging people to wear masks. So think about what I just said, right? The top of health official in a state seeing one of the biggest spikes in new cases and hospitalizations, for that matter, signed a piece of paper on a weekend recommending that people do the one thing that we know that works to slow the spread of this virus, which is to wear a mask. I mean, talk about just like, we talk about like what's the least you can do. This is literally the least you can do if you're a public health official. As a general rule of thumb, right, public health advisory should probably be a little splashier than that. You may want to get to the people who aren't paying attention to what happens in the State House on a weekend, right? Maybe do some TV interviews, maybe go out and have a press conference. It's just a disgrace how some of these officials are acting, I think. But it is notable that some of that these states are at least starting to say, like, please wear masks, just please, like, we know it can help. Please just do it when you're in public.
And I mean, you can even make a mask. Some new studies came out that showed even if you just took a t-shirt, so just say you don't have anything to make a mask, you cannot afford even the pack of, 10 for $10. But even if you took a t-shirt and just sort of rolled it and covered your mouth, or a scarf, or just used anything to just cover your mouth and your nose, even that is actually quite effective at preventing you from spreading the virus. And I know we say that it doesn't prevent you from getting other people's germs, but it certainly can't hurt.
Exactly.
On the topic of
broken records.
Sorry, go on.
No, I feel like we're broken records at this point, but
On the topic of Florida, the NBA getting ready to play a shortened season in Orlando in just a few weeks. So you do have to wonder if the league is giving any thought to the caseload in that state.
I mean, I would be, I just looked into this. So Orange County, Florida, which is where Orlando is, which is where Disney World is, which is where they're going to be doing the NBA season. 17% of tests are coming back positive, which is pretty high. If I'm LeBron James and I have a guaranteed salary, I ain't going. I mean, I'm not an NBA player, so I don't know exactly, this is their livelihood, but I wouldn't do it. Sorry.
And you just have to wonder about college sports too. I mean, I
That's a
think
whole other
most
one. Yeah.
are moving forward at this point, but you just have to wonder if it actually is going to happen. In other news, President Trump has issued an executive order that will suspend work visas until the end of the year. This will affect any foreigners trying to get a job in the United States, from high skilled computer programmers to seasonal hospitality workers to au pairs. Most businesses are adamantly opposed to the freeze, saying that it will stifle innovation and make it harder to fill jobs that Americans can't or won't do.
It also extends a pause on green cards, and it makes it so people whose spouses have visas and work in the United States cannot apply to join them for the time being, which is sad. The White House says that this is a means to protect American workers, right? But if you believe that, then I have a bridge to sell you, Phil. I mean, I know that on these immigration topics, I'm a little bit biased because my wife, I've seen this up close. My wife was on an H-1B. I met her when she was on an H-1B, which are the visas that are now being suspended. But look, it's all part of the administration's push to slow immigration, legal and illegal. The irony, of course, is that everyone pays attention to the wall, right? The president, I think, is going to Arizona today or tomorrow to check in on the building of the wall. Which is utterly meaningless, right? But what they're doing when it comes to legal immigration is the opposite of that. It has real effects on a lot of people, and it's I think, in my opinion, it's very damaging because this is a country of immigrants. Lest we forget that.
Yeah, I mean, Apple and a lot of the big tech companies really firing back about this because they rely on these workers in a lot of capacities. Tim Cook, basically saying Apple wouldn't exist without immigration. Steve Jobs, by the way, son of an immigrant. So, maybe he'll listen to some of these tech companies.
I doubt
You
it, but
never
yeah.
know.
This is Stephen Miller.
It's
This is
also
his sorry, but Stephen Miller, who is the president's immigration architect, he's behind all these things, and he is a serious hardliner. So he's getting what he wants.
It's also primary day. The big storyline, as a handful of states go to the polls today, is whether or not the left wing of the Democratic Party can pull off a big night. So there are primaries, special elections, and runoffs in about 6 states. Carlo, I know you've been following this. What are you watching?
Yeah, so I think that's right. I think that the question is going to be about the the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Can they, are they activated? So in Kentucky's a good one. You've got this guy, this progressive Charles Booker. He's looking to take on Amy McGrath for the chance to then take on Mitch McConnell in November. Mitch McConnell will almost certainly win that election, but it'll be interesting to see if this guy Booker can pull off the upset. There's a deep red district in upstate New York. I forget. I think it's the 27th district. There's a special election there to fill the seat of the convicted felon Chris Collins, the Republican who's going to jail for I forget, some sort of financial crime. That is much closer than it probably should be, given that that's real Trump country up there. Also in my hometown district, Elliot Engel, who is he's been around forever. He's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He could get knocked off by this middle school principal, Jamal Bowman. It's going to be a very interesting case to watch. I mean, this would be a shock. Engel has been in Congress forever, but he's as somebody in my family said this weekend. When you have a career in Congress for 30 years and you deliver precisely nothing to your constituents, eventually you may get primaried, and that's what's happening now. But just to the storyline again is. The thing to watch is, has the party, given what's happened since Joe Biden effectively became the nominee a few months ago, between the pandemic and the protests, It'll be interesting to see if the party has moved leftward. And if it has, does that mean anything for Biden in terms of who he picks for his VP and how he positions himself against President Trump for these next few months?
Okay, really stupid question. Michelle Caruso Cabrera from CNBC, she's running against
Yeah,
AOC, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. Is that happening
I
today or is
forgot
that in
about that.
November?
I forgot about that. Get back to me. Let me look. Let me do my googling.
So Michelle Caruso Cabrera is also running. I think she's running again. I think it's today, because it's a primary because she's
Yeah,
challenging AOC for the Democratic seat.
yeah,
So that'll be
yeah,
one to watch.
yeah.
I mean, it didn't seem like AOC is so extremely popular, but if anyone could give her, a run for her money, I would think it's Michelle
No,
Caruso
you're right.
Cabrera, who already
Glad
has
you
name
mentioned that.
recognition. For people who don't know her, she was a NBC correspondent and worked for CNBC
NBC.
for a long
Yeah,
time.
I used to work with her. She's a really nice woman.
Yes, she is. Okay, some other news. A huge dust storm that began in the Sahara Desert last week is making its way toward the U.S. and will drift over Gulf states like Texas and Louisiana as early as tomorrow. The plume of dust could be very dangerous for people who have respiratory conditions like COVID-19, but it will also make for vibrant sunsets for a couple of days. Carlo, so we are talking killer hornets, a
What
sub-Saharan
happened to the
dust
murder
storm.
hornets?
Oh yeah, murder hornets. I mean, I would say
Right.
file this under only in 2020, but apparently these dust storms are quite common, but just not as bad
Yeah, exactly. So
normally.
they happen most years around now, but this one is going to be much bigger than they have been in the past. So I don't think it's a sign of the apocalypse necessarily. It probably is a sign of uh, climate change. But in any event, if you're down in the southeast, the photos from the last one of the sunsets were pretty amazing. So given how that this is going to be even bigger, it means you're probably going to get some wild sunrises and sunsets down there. But wear a mask, which you should be doing anyway, just when you're outside, because fine particulate matter is no joke. That's that's the stuff that you can't see out there that still gets in your lungs, right?
Yep. Some tech news now. Apple kicked off its annual developers conference, which it held virtually for the first time. There were a slew of software announcements that could be relevant if you do own an iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, or Apple Watch, all of which are getting big upgrades under the hood. The new iOS 14 will let iPhone users customize the home screen with widgets and set default mail and browser apps. Apple also going to start making its own chips for Macs. So they're ditching Intel after 15 years. That is pretty big business news. That's not necessarily consumer news, but in the business world, that's a pretty
Yeah,
big deal.
it is. So on the Apple stuff, I'm not an Android user, but I was looking into this yesterday, and apparently the knock on all of these iOS updates is that they're basically just copying what Android users have had for a while, like being able to like customize your home screen and widgets, and like hide apps that you don't use a lot. So I think Android users are like, "Hello, welcome to the party." But I don't know. I don't really pay attention to that stuff that much. But the Intel news, Jill, like you said, it is a big deal because what it should, if you're not really in the, steeped in the world of like semiconductors, which you probably wouldn't be unless you worked at one of these companies. But I think what it shows is, these big companies are now, these big tech companies, right? They have so much money, they have so much capital that they're basically just able to say like, you know what, we're just going to do it on our own. And this is a not perfect analogy, but I was thinking about this yesterday. Um, look at Amazon. Have you noticed how many Amazon trucks there are on the streets now? And maybe this is just
Yes.
in New York, but it used to be that like the FedEx guy would come once a day. He would double park outside and he'd have like all the Amazon packages. And now it's just outside my building again. Only what I've seen. It's just like a never-ending line of these blue Amazon delivery trucks. It's just interesting, right? They're doing it all themselves.
It's that last mile, as they call it, the last mile of
Right.
delivery.
Right.
And finally, a man from Maine has smashed the record for driving coast to coast. This is known as the Cannonball Run. He did it by himself. Fred Ashmore rented a Mustang GT, replaced the back seat with fuel tanks, and drove from New York City to LA in 25 hours and 55 minutes, stopping just once to refuel. His average speed, 108 miles per hour. So many questions here, Carlo. Least of which is how this guy used the bathroom.
I don't think you want to ask that question because I have a feeling I know the answer, and it has to do with wearing a diaper. Um, no, I love this story, and it's actually pretty interesting, right? Because these Cannonball Run people who this is like a thing that people do, right? They try and break this record, this coast to coast record, and they've been out in force over the last couple months because there's been so little traffic, right? And much fewer cops on the street, so they can. There've been more of these record attempts, but this guy just blew these people away. I mean, New York to LA in 26 hours is insane. It's insane. But I mean that's cool little dinner party conversation. I hold the record for
Um,
driving across the country in a day.
and it's one of the conversations that's probably safe. I have noticed, just in the few outdoor gatherings that I've been at, there's just coronavirus politics. It's so pervasive, that
I know.
it's hard to stay light sometimes with conversations. So this this does it, right? A
Thank you, Fred
cannonball
Ashbrook.
ride from New York to LA.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I know we should find some more news to talk about that, that
We
we can
should
that
call
you
it
can
like
appropriate for.
we should call it like Zoom happy hour topics. If people,
Yeah,
you know what,
exactly.
we did. I think we did a tweet, and I know we have to go. We did a retweet the other day that was like, Zoom happy hours just stopped, and nobody's
Yeah,
talked about it. Like
yeah.
no one does them anymore. I don't know what happened. They just are not a thing anymore.
Well, I think
Maybe
because
because it's
people
nice
realize
out.
they are. Yeah, and they're terrible. I mean, didn't we? I think we did a love hate date on this a while back, but I find that whole thing just so. I'm glad that that's over with, and maybe people are still doing them, um, but to me it's just like I just don't like it. I already
My
have to
niece
be
had a
on this
Zoom
thing.
birthday party yesterday.
Like that just makes me depressed. I'd rather just not have a party.
Okay, let's end it there. That's what you need to know for Tuesday, June 23rd.
Thanks, everybody.